Okay, my name is Mike Bellina, Migman Media. I do website design and website strategy. Look, I can't remember what I do. I want to talk a little bit about email marketing. Today, this is part of the stuff that I do as an internet consultant. So I do want to say one thing though, that the demise of email marketing has been greatly exaggerated. I know that there's social media and there's all these other ways to do it, but as long as email is one of the primary means of communications, it'll be a successful tool. I can guarantee you that. So, and the reason I bring this up, because I started my first email campaign. Yeah. So I'm very excited about that. So it launched just this past Wednesday. Some of you have got it, and if you have it, give me your email. I'll put you on the list. But before I sent it out, I had to decide what I wanted to do with this. I mean, there were so many options that I could have done. So I need to kind of decide, what was the purpose? Who was my audience? You know, how often do I send it? I mean, these are all things that I had to kind of mull in my head. So I did what was logical to me. I came to you guys and looked for feedback. I mean, that's what this place is all about. So you were my test subject, so to speak. So once I kind of figured out what I wanted to do, I kind of put together some tips that I wanted to share with you. So if you want to do an e-newsletter or you're doing one, kind of how to reevaluate it and make sure that it's working for you. So these are some of the tips that I put together. First and foremost is decide on your purpose. Are you educating? Are you selling? Are you informing? So, I mean, that's important because that will set the tone for your newsletter. I decided I was going to educate my audience. There's a ton of writing out there on the internet and on internet marketing, and some of it is really good, and some of it not so good. So, what I want to do, and I kind of said this in my opening paragraph, is I want to handpick the ones that I thought would be the most useful, and to share them with you. Who reads about SEO besides me? And I think that's about it. I think me and 3 other people. So that's what I want to do. But my main purpose for doing this was to stay in touch with my clients and possibly generate more business. It's a proven fact that it's more likely and it's less expensive to get new business from your current customers. So, which leads me to my next tip, which is define your target audience. In my case, my target audience, at least initially, is current and past clients, as well as some colleagues. I had past clients because I figured, well, maybe they want to re-engage. I figured the worst that can happen, they can report me as spam. Not the end of the world. So I went through my contact list, and then I came up with about 124 names, which I thought that was a pretty good size to start with. These are people that know what I do and probably are less likely to mark it as spam. And as I get clients, I'll add them with their permission, of course. But the other thing I did was I added a pop-up to my website for my e-newsletter. And after about 2 seconds, if you're on my site, you can all try this. It only happens once, so if you click through to it, it won't happen again. After about 2 seconds, they're pretty engaged at that point. It pops up a little pop-up. It says, hey. And I was very specific about what I put on this thing. I didn't just say sign up for a newsletter. I said, get valuable internet marketing tips delivered to your inbox every other week. No surprises, either yes or no, and that's pretty much. So we'll see how that works. The next thing you have to think about is you're playing your frequency. So this one was kind of hard for me because I just didn't know in which direction to go. But then I thought about it, and this is kind of a rule of thumb that I tell my clients. It's amazing how you could tell people so many things, but when you got to do it yourself, you're like, blah, 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 blah. It really, to me, it's like, it depends on the content. How quickly you're going to be able to go through it. And how quickly it'll stack up in your inbox. Now, for example, I get a daily email from Neil Patel, which his email is about 7 sentences. It pretty much says, here's my new blog post, and that's pretty much it. It takes about 30 seconds to look at. I can decide whether I want to click through or not click through, and I delete it and store it. Mine is called Migman Marketing Minute. I figured it would take about a minute to read the opening paragraph and skim through the 5 or 6 headlines, plus their descriptions. So I figured that'd take about a minute. If they want to go back, they could save it, but it wouldn't stack up too quickly because I'm not delivering it every day or every week. So every other week, it gives them an opportunity to go through the stories they want. So like I said, in the end, I decided to go every other week. Now, Lori's newsletter is chock full of information. I think if she sent that out weekly, other than driving myself and herself crazy, they would stack up because there's a lot of information. It takes a little while to go through it. I think people would get overwhelmed, and in the end, they either would just not open it, or they would just unsubscribe. So the key takeaway for this, you don't want to overwhelm your audience. That's a great way to not be successful. So, which leads me to my next tip, which is, so what does success look like? Well, that varies. Some people like to look at open rates. So like my first email was nearly 30% open rate, which is great. But before you, remember, these are people that know who I am, and there was only 124 people on the list. So I would figure that at 124, 30 people just kind of felt sorry for me, so they opened it up. So my point is, don't fall in love with the open rate, because for me, success would be to get more business. So even if I had an open rate consistently of 30% and got no business from it, is this email really a success? Well, that's really kind of up for me to decide what that is. Which leads me to my last tip, which is evaluate. For me, a more important measurement was open rates. Rather than open rates, was click-through rates. What are they clicking on? What are they not clicking on? Are they even clicking at all? This is a little bit more valuable to me, because what it'll do in the end is it'll tell me what type of articles are interested, or my audience is interested in. And then based on that, I can change the content of the newsletter. So what I'll probably do, though, is just try different formats, different subject lines. I don't have a large enough audience to do like A/B testing. And A/B testing is basically, you need like 2,000 or plus names to do that, where half the list gets one thing, the other half of the list gets the other thing, and then you kind of compare and contrast based on, there's like two different, basically, so you send out two different newsletters, and you see which one works better than the other. So what I'm going to do until I build up an audience is just experiment, see which ones work, which ones don't, layouts and all that kind of stuff, and see what gets better click-throughs. I recommend that every 6 to 10 issues, look at your trends, see what's working, see what's not working. Tweak if needed, and then in another 6 to 10 issues, look at it again and make any tweaks that need to be, that need to be done. I chose this topic because I know a lot of you do email newsletters, but what I want to do is kind of share my experience in kind of starting from the beginning, and hopefully give you some ideas on your current e-newsletter. Is it still working the way you wanted to? Is it still relevant as you thought it was when you first started it? And so give you something to kind of look at, some tips to look at when you evaluate your own e-newsletter. Thank you very much.
Very good, thank you.
Any questions?
Do you have a way of knowing who looked at it, or?
Actually, yes. I mean, if you know who their email is, like I had a couple of unsubscribes, and I knew who they are. And one person was reported me as spam. I was like, I know you. She may not have recognized who it was coming from. I was like, I should call her up and say, you reported me as spam. But that was actually one of my fears. But yes, you can tell, because it gives you the email address. I use MailChimp. That's the one I use, and they're actually
benchmark also, right?
Yeah, I don't know that much about. I usually, for all my clients, I use MailChimp. I finally got Alori on there by default, and they have great reporting tools. So that's the one I recommend for most people. And they have like a pro version too, which is even better. I'm not affiliated with it in any way. I just like the reporting system, and they have iPad apps, and it's like, let's see.
Then what happens if somebody reports you as spam?
Well, it depends. There are always crazy people out in the world that are just miserable. But if you get a large percentage of people reporting you as spam, you'll get a notification. I'll get a notification from MailChimp that says you had a large number of
unsubscribed.
people, not so much unsubscribed, but people reporting it as spam. And they use it. There's a percentage thing, and it's a percentage that they use. It's like maybe 0.5%, 0.7%, or something like that. I don't remember what it was.
You're not allowed.
Well, yeah, what they do is initially they say, well, you may have to look at your list and just clean it up. And that's the other thing. You really have to make sure your list is clean. And you and I have talked about this because you could be paying to send out stuff to people that aren't getting it. You could be saving yourself some money.
I just wanted to share on that subject. When we have a new client joins our program in any one of the offices, they get. Well, in addition to their paperwork that they need to start their first program, they get a piece of paper that says, welcome to Weight Number Diet Center, blah, 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 follow us at, and this is just to let you know that you will automatically be receiving our monthly electronic newsletter and our weekly episodes of my Fat Chat podcast. Once you get it, feel free to unsubscribe if you like. I put it out there so that it's not coming as a total surprise. They could easily say to me or, no, I don't want it, but nobody does. But if they unsubscribe after a while, because I don't get offended by it, but nobody's reported me as spam. And I tell you the truth, I thought that an unsubscribe was a spam to the
No, you're.
I mean to the benchmark, to the MailChimp. I thought that's what that was, but it's
No,
totally
actually,
different.
no. Unsubscribe is just that I'm no longer interested. It doesn't mean it's bad.
It
It means I'm
doesn't
no
send a
longer
bad
interested.
message to the
Well, the
to
spam
carrier?
is usually something that you report. Like a lot of, if you use Gmail, you can say report as spam.
Oh,
And the spam is usually sent back by the email servers, or sometimes by the person
Oh, I
themselves.
see.
They
Okay.
specifically, I'd say this is garbage. This is
No,
spam.
but it works for me.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Leslie.
yeah,
Thank
very
you.
good.
Mhm.